But the amazing thing about toxic shame in 1957, there was a book written called, I think, The Gifted Child by Eric Erickson. And in that book in 1957, he said this thing called shame needs a great deal more study. So there was a one sentence reference that I saw in my own background and my own, academic career. And I remember seeing that thinking, oh my goodness, it's like this is not a brand new phenomenon, but it's something finally described in
Yes.
depth. And to recognize the difference between toxic shame and guilt. And then John Bradshaw comes along,
Oh yeah.
Pia Melody, John Bradshaw, Claudia Black. John Bradshaw writes a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You, which is the seminal work on toxic shame. It is fabulous. In fact, one of the things we can talk about tonight is his diagram that he, in a very simplistic way, in a very simple way, and elegantly, he
Mhm.
shows us how toxic shame works and what it does to us, which we'll touch base with tonight,
Wonderful.
you know. But let me tell you what toxic shame is. Toxic shame is a contempt or a rejection of myself for being human. Toxic shame is contempt towards myself for having feelings,
Hmm.
having needs, having desire, having longings, and having hope. In fact, toxic shame, a great expression of toxic shame is like, don't get your hopes up, and that way you won't wind up disappointed.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's laden. Toxic shame is always laden with you shouldn't feel that, you shouldn't think that, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have thought that, you shouldn't have messed that up, you should have seen this coming. And it's as if it's dictating that we see the future before we get there. We've got to know stuff we've never learned,
Right.
right?
Right.
We've got to be able to read minds so we know what people are looking for so they don't have to ask us. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on.
Hmm.
But what's amazing about toxic shame, and finally, we're conscious enough of it to know that it's the enemy. But toxic shame, which we'll get to hopefully, but toxic shame actually comes from being ashamed, having no healthy shame. In other words, I have contempt towards myself, and I have contempt towards myself for having healthy shame. And so, healthy shame, we've got the book, The Voice of the Heart,
Right.
we've got Needs of the Heart. And you were talking about the shame chapter, how you were like really struck this time in rereading it
Right.
about how the beauty of healthy shame.
Yes. It's just one aspect I don't think is in our cultural consciousness.
No, no, in fact,
Hasn't
yeah,
made it to the masses yet. That
no.
there's healthy shame.
Healthy shame is an inborn, without words, it's an inborn recognition of an understanding and acceptance of myself for being needy. It is the dependency feeling. In other words, I need you, and I don't have a problem with that,
Hmm.
and I'm worth needing you,
Yeah.
and I expect and hope and desire and long and need you to care about me. I need to belong and matter with you, and I fully expect that to happen. And it's not going to be a shock, it's just going to be a thrill.
Uh-huh.
And so, healthy shame is the neediness feeling that says that we are dependent creatures, we are truth speaking creatures, because a child speaks the truth because they don't know how not to yet.
Right.
And we are present oriented creatures. In other words, a child doesn't even know how to hide out. So everything they do is present. So their presence is everywhere they go. They're telling the truth with their presence. And that truth and that presence is depending upon you to connect with.
Yes.
Because neuroscience says you come out of the womb looking for who's looking for you. We're relationship oriented creatures. Okay.
Okay.
So when we grow up and start growing up, if we're allowed to grow as humans, we get affirmation and confirmation in our need to belong and matter, meaning that we have caregivers that are saying, uh, yes to how you're made, yes to your tears, yes to your laughter, yes to your fears, yes to your hopes. Like, yes to your sadness, Yes to your loneliness. Yes to your hurt. In other words, it's okay for you to be human, which means dependent and stay present and be truthful about what you need. Now, what happens is it grows into four sentences. Number one, health,
This is healthy
yeah,
shame.
healthy shame,
Okay.
healthy shame. That we're not created to be ashamed of healthy shame. And healthy shame grows into this beautiful thing. I make mistakes, and so do you. So how about we just keep working at this project, knowing full well it's going to be a struggle and difficult. So you see, automatically, if I make mistakes and you do too, it's kind of like a patience in the process comes out of it, and a permission to like be imperfect, and sort of like we can share. So number one, it's I make mistakes and so do you. Number two is I don't have all the answers, but I have some ideas. And these ideas I've worked on and they've worked. Do you want me to share them with you? And so you sort of hear this child
Yes.
belief and imagination.
Yeah.
So I don't have all the answers, but got some. What are your answers? What do you have? And if I share what I've got and you bring what you've got, before you know it, we've got a thing called a stew. Like you've got potatoes and you've got carrots and you've got beef and you've got sticks and
Uh-huh.
so-and-so's got a match and they've got water. So-and-so's got a bowl. Somebody's got some spoons so we don't eat with our hands. And before you know it, all of our answers combined become communion, community, a
Yes.
stew. Healthy shame actually brings us together. We don't have to hide out. We're free to cry out. Number three,
Hmm.
healthy shame says, I'm not God and you aren't either. So I don't expect you to try to be God. Toxic shame says, I should know everything before I get there. In other words, I'm kind of like trying to be God to be safe or to be accepted or to belong and matter.
Yes.
Okay. And so the fourth thing that healthy shame says is, I need you and you need me. Now, I can't see behind my head, Colton. And if I don't have someone who can tell me what's behind me, I'm in danger. So I need someone to see what I don't see. I need someone that I can tell the truth to. I need someone I can share things that are embarrassing. I need someone to help me remember my worth.
Hmm.
I need someone to help hold me to the recognition of that worth and to help me realize people need you and to depend on you, and they want to trust you. They want to be with you. They want to care about you. And so I need you to be truthful with me, to be present with me, and to be even dependent on me too. In other words, it's okay for you to need me and me to need you.
Hmm.
But what happens is that once we become rejected for being human, okay,
Yeah.
the need to belong and matter is so powerful that I will give up my humanity, my human being, and I will become a human doing. I start mind reading, I start anticipating, I start guessing, and I'm trying to prevent myself from ever being caught being dependent, being fully present. I'm a performer instead of being present. I'm trying to fight to become independent so I won't be humiliated for being needy. I try to become realistic, keep my hopes low, reduce my neediness. I meet your needs, maybe you'll meet my needs. In other words, we become transactional, like deal.
Compromise. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so the tragedy is that once we lose healthy shame, once we lose our capacity to ask for help and to be in need, we lose our capacity to also listen to our hurt and listen to our sadness and listen to our fear. And if anybody's read The Voice of the Heart, we know that fear is good and sad is good and loneliness is good and hurt is good and anger is good and guilt is good and gladness is good.
Hmm.
Right. And all of these are expressing like I'm alive, I'm in need. It's a world of, we talked about, it's a world of laughter and a world of tears, a world of hope and a world of fears.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that we share that it's time we're aware. It's a small world after all. Once that gets rejected by people who matter, the need to belong and matter as we're created, we start to self reject. So if I can't belong and matter like I'm created, then I'm going to find a way to belong and matter some other way. So instead of being present, I start to perform. Instead of being truthful, I start just being realistic, lower my hopes.
Right.
Instead of being dependent, I start trying not to need anybody.
Dependency to independency, codependency. It
Yes.
We buy into the lie that being human is wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, it's well said because we've been taught that a relationship is interdependence.
Yes.
Well, see, interdependence is just deal making. That's business is interdependent.
It's
But
work.
an intimate relationship is not interdependent. It is dependent on trusting another person. And if we try to become independent, then we're saying I don't have needs and I won't have healthy shame. And then if we're codependent, I'll get my needs met only if I guess what your needs are, and I'm happy if you're happy. It's a total loss of self. So toxic shame is rejection of healthy shame. I go from being a human being to a human doing.
Human doing.
Human doing.
So it's really stood out to me, and I read through the shame chapter the last couple of days. When we're practicing toxic shame as an impairment, we're actually rejecting an actual feeling
Yes.
of shame.
Yes.
So it's like, well, we need to get rid of toxic shame. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
That means I come back home.
Yes.
To dependency.
Yep.
To my vulnerability.
Yep.
My limitedness.
Yep.
And my gifting.
Yes.
And it's like, what if we,
yeah,
all the message so often is take away toxic shame. Well, what, and get into what?
Yeah. And I remember, and I think I write about that humility doesn't have to be humiliation. Okay. When I was in high school,
You say it one more time.
humility doesn't have to be humiliation,
Yeah.
which, in other words, knowing that I'm needy, knowing that I'm human doesn't mean I'm going to be humiliated. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with me. It means that something's right with me. And a great story, healthy shame, and giftedness connected to it, and humility connected to it, and really celebration of being human connected to it. There was this kid, I was like a junior in high school, and my brother has a good friend who's a freshman in high school. And the football team was about to play their first game, freshman football. And this kid on the team, his name was Tim. And Tim had two older brothers who were superstars. Okay. And Tim, one of his brothers, was drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies. And I'm talking about this is back in when that never happened. That was just like a freak thing. Now it's sort of like people know about those things.
Yeah, right.
But like, really? They drafted by a pro baseball team? That's amazing. This is Murfreesboro and so on. His other brother was the starting quarterback for a D1 college. Okay. And Tim was just waiting his turn, dying to finally get out there on that field. His time had finally come. And my brother was on the team, so I was at the game. And so they ran through the paper mache, the paper thing, the banner, like the freshman football opening season. And Tim is so excited that he's 20 yards ahead of the rest of the team. He's headed towards the 50-yard line, and he's going to like, I've arrived. Brothers, you see me. He's like, I'm somebody too. Like, let's do this. He's excited. He's angry for the game. He is in no level embarrassed about like wanting something, desiring something, hoping for something. He's been dreaming about this moment since he was like watched his brother throw the first baseball and football. He's a linebacker, and the kid had two older brothers. He's tough as nails. Okay. He's not the same athlete as these guys.
Yeah.
But he has a greater heart. So he's running out. He hits the 30-yard line. There's 20 yards left to get to the 50 for everybody to join him. He stubs his toe on a flat surface, and he starts to windmill. He starts to exactly. And all of a sudden, he's doing this dance nobody's ever seen before, and he windmills forward, lands flat on his face, sprawled out on the ground by himself on the 50-yard line. And the day that he dreamed of is a flop. And the rest of the teammates are so far back, it's going to be a minute before they catch up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going like, oh, And I saw something that I didn't understand it because I already had my own toxic shame going like big time. I was toxic with it, pretending, faking, acting, and so on. And he jumped up like nothing had happened. And he just jumped back up and started back with what he was doing. And the team came in and surrounded him. He jumped into the team and just goes crazy. I mean, his mistake,
Yes.
his need of others, his knowing he's not God, and his not knowing having all the answers, but he had one. I want to be on this field.
Yeah.
His humility stopped him from being humiliated.
Uh-huh.
So healthy shame is actually the capacity for embarrassment.
Yes.
In other words, to laugh at myself, to recognize because guess what? I saw myself being human. That's funny.
Uh-huh.
And also, it can be very sad. Like, I wanted this so badly. Now I'm crying because I lost it.
Mm-hmm.
And after the game, he came to the game, he was crying. Mm-hmm. My brother told me he was crying. And he was crying because he was so angry because they lost.
Hmm.
He had forgotten that he fell.
Yeah.
He'd forgotten the windmill. And if you got toxic shame, the only thing you remember,
It's the only thing locked in there.
yep,
The mistake.
yep, nobody ever brought it up.
Yeah.
And that little ninth grade kid, actually, believe it or not, he's passed away. He's as a younger man. Of course, I'm old, so I mean, he's as a middle-aged guy, he passed away. But that young boy taught me a lesson in my heart that God implanted that I would never forget. And when I began my own, doctoral work and started grasping what feelings were and got my own recovery of heart, I'm like, that young boy showed me a truth that I'm taking back. And I ended up writing the short blog, a short story about humility doesn't have to be humiliating about him because he's a great example of healthy shame. And see, toxic shame makes us anxious.
Oh yeah.
It makes us predict the future.
Oh yeah.
It makes us think we're going to die if we make a mistake.
Yes.
If I have to raise my hand, there's something defective about
You
me.
should already know.
I should
Yes.
already know. And he was an amazing young man. And he went on to just like cry when they would lose every game because he was so angry to win.
Yeah.
And he wanted other
Every
people to
game.
come with him and do it. Let's do this.
Dreaming.
I got a dream.
This is, I think one thing I lost pre-recovery, especially in my toxic shame, was gladness. Like
Mhm.
just the ability, not the willingness to celebrate. I mean,
Yeah.
one time you told me, I told you I was excited about something. You're like, we forgot to tell your family.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hidden.
Yeah. Yes.
Heart's here, face
Yes.
is somewhere over here.
Yeah.
Like,
Toxic shame makes us leave home.
yes.
And so I start to use my face to hide what's happening in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll hide sadness as well as celebration,
Mm-hmm.
But see, toxic shame, there's a Bradshaw, you're going to put up on the webinar,
Yeah, they
Bradshaw.
this. We have a resource for you, the toxic shame cycle, and it was emailed to you today, and it's on the webinar resources tab. So
Yeah.
that's what we're talking
And
about.
John Bradshaw showed us that. So let's break it down, combine healthy shame and toxic shame. So those of you listening can continue to heal from toxic shame and reclaim your healthy shame. It's that once we make a decision that somehow feelings are wrong or bad, that needs mean I'm weak, that desire is something that may be sinful, that longings are for babies, the longing for a world that's better than the one we've got. It's like you need to grow up, and like life's a crap sandwich, dude. Eat it or starve. Put jelly on it and be sweeter. Just like quit being a baby. And once hope is for the childish, you have the experience of believing that you're defective, because every child comes out absolutely crushing life with hope, and child comes out with full-hearted participation, which is called courage.
Yes.
And they come out being sure of what they hope for and certain of what they do not see. They have faith. And a child is willing to give their hands, their head, and their heart to everything they do. So they have a work ethic that we rarely get back. So I want you to know that a child comes out like just blowing up with this craving to live.
Mm.
And so when they're not affirmed and confirmed, when they don't belong and matter for being human, they're told somehow through faces, through words, and through neglect, through actions that harm the child, the child ends up deciding there's something wrong with me. I am defective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the need of the parent is so powerful, the child can't help but look at the parent and say, you're big, I'm not. You can do things like open doors and drive cars. I can't. You're smart. I'm dumb. I'm not smart. And then you're right. So I must be wrong. And so that's the toxic shame decision that says, something's wrong with me. And the only thing I can come up with that's wrong with me is feelings.
Yeah.
Because I don't have much more than that. I haven't done anything yet. I haven't written anything or driven anything, or I've just like, the only thing I can find is it must be me.
Yeah.
And so Bradshaw really clearly says, I am defective is the first movement of the establishment of toxic shame. And toxic shame is you need to quit being like you are. And what I am is healthy shame. You need to give up your healthy shame and get out of your neediness, quit being dependent. You better find the answers. You better figure it out. You better quit being so present.
Yeah. Try hard.
Yeah. And that mistaken belief
Mm-hmm.
turns us into performers. So I am defective, which is a lie from the pit of hell. And that mistaken belief, because I still need to belong and matter, turns into if I don't blank, I won't be cared about. So now I've gone from being to doing. If I don't get smart, if I'm not tough, if I'm not more caring, if I'm not the kind one, if I don't quit crying, if I don't figure this out, if I don't learn to swing, if I can't do multiplication table, if I'm not the most religious one, if I can't memorize things, I won't be cared about. So now your work ethic, which is your heart being contributed, is labor.
Yeah.
So now I've already begun my burnout process. I've already begun the wearing out process.
The exhaustion. Just
absolutely. I must blank to be loved. I must blank to be loved. I must perform these things to get the food.
mm-hmm.
And then what happens next is I perform and I perform and I perform, but no matter how much I do, it's never quite enough. See, toxic shame says, this is what's wrong with you, and this is what you need to do about it. So I want you to know that toxic shame tells you what's wrong with you, and also, paradoxically, gives you a solution. What's wrong with you is you feel sad. What you need to do is be happy. What's wrong with you is that you're selfish by wanting things for yourself. You need to give to other people.
Mm-hmm.
You should give to other people and shouldn't want for yourself,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And I remember one of the first guys we treated that came into drug and alcohol treatment, his mother was teaching him how to give and share. So from the age of 6, when he started having birthday parties, mother would buy presents to give to other children who were invited to his party and never was allowed to have a present.
Oh.
So he winds up in drug treatment.
Yeah.
He's learning how to share. So in other words, you shouldn't want, you shouldn't wish for yourself, you shouldn't have. And so he became a doctor and literally was morosely depressed and drug addicted and wasn't worth even being loved at all,
mm-hmm.
and didn't have the right to have anything.
Yes.
So I must blank to be loved turns into no matter what, no matter how much I need, my needs will never will be met. Because if I ask you to help me with something and you do it, I secretly think you think I'm pathetic, or I think you think I'm a pest, or I think you think I'm pitiful, or I think you think I'm a punk. So I really believe you only met my needs because you felt sorry for me, or you resent me, or I've got to pay for it. So there's no capacity to receive a gift of being like just cared about.
Yeah.
And that can make us dangerous people, because I remember I was putting up some timbers when my sons were very young, and I'm doing it by myself, way too much for one person. And I was trying to just support a beam, support concrete, and the beam was moving And
Ooh.
so I yelled and said, "Hey," got my oldest son to come down, he's 10, and hold this beam. And the beam, if the beam had slipped, hit him in the head,
Yeah.
I could have killed him.
Max is 10.
I know. So, and then all of a sudden I call myself like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I awakened to fear. I awakened to need. And I called 4 guys who came out the next morning and they helped me do that, which I hated asking for.
Uh-huh.
But I even had fear of asking. So, I mean, our need to get help and our need to ask, our need to have healthy shame, if we don't have it, we are actually danger to ourselves, but we also are passing along dangerous things to other people.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we're made to have feelings, we're made to be cared about, we're made to need. But this dynamic that Bradshaw shows, that once I believe I'm defective and I have to perform to be loved, then no matter how much I ask my needs to be met, they're really never met because I believe that something's wrong with me for having them.
And we're still on the hook.
We're still on the hook.
Yeah.
And that's where he so brilliantly says it leads to life damaging consequences. In other words, the potential to harm my son. Or everything, like if I run out on the field, I'm not going to take those chances.
Mhm.
I'm not going to let somebody see me celebrating that might make fun of me. So the life damaging consequences is I miss my life and people in my life miss my life too.
Yeah.
In other words, I live behind a screen of should-isms, of never being known, never being present, never being truthful, never being dependent. And so what's amazing is that leads me back to proof that I'm defective.
Uh-huh.
And so that's where Bradshaw's so brilliant. He said that toxic shame is a form of repeating trauma. It's a form of trying to climb the mountain or push the rock up the mountain like Sisyphus, only just at the point of success it rolls back down.
Yeah.
We literally become addicted to toxic shame.
Yes.
And freedom is literally a thin veil away. The freedom is as thin as our face and as close as our hearts. You get me? So freedom is as thin as our face and as close as our hearts. And when we look at another person, like I was you, and I was literally thinking about you last night. It's like, I know you're young. I know that you're like, there are experiences you're going to have in the future. Many experiences I've already had, but I still need you. I need you to see what's behind me because I trust you. I need you to ask questions like, where are you, Chip? Like, where are you inside?
Right.
Like, where are you really? Like, where are you in terms of what are you feeling? I remember Sonia, I'm sitting on the sofa, she said, where are you? I'm like, sitting right here. He said, yeah,
That is good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she meant,
Front of me.
I need to know where you are, like,
Yeah.
because you seem like you're just staring into space. And where are you inside, Chip? It was a beautiful question. And then I need somebody to want to know what I'm doing with where I am. What are you doing with your fear? What are you doing with your needs? What are you doing with your sadness? And then I need somebody to want to know the story. Like, well, what happened? And what's that like? So we're set free when we admit the healthy shame experiences. I need somebody to want to know where I am.
Okay.
I need somebody to want to know what I'm doing with where I am. I need somebody to want to know what happened. And I need somebody to actually want to know what that was like.
Which is the very thing we work so hard not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And look, think about the toxic shame. How old are you?
33.
Yeah, you're 33. I'm 66. Uh, Something must be wrong with me for needing a little punk like
For
you,
me,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you get what I'm saying?
It's I so get it. I think that's the hardest part for me to trust until really recently, that you practice needs so well and you mean it.
Yeah,
Like I need, where are you today?
yeah,
I need to know.
yeah. Like I'll ask you.
It's like, why are you threatening me? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
no, I
need
really want to
help.
know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like I need to know because if you're not present and I am, then I'm alone with
Right.
you.
Right.
If you can't be lonely or if you can't be sad, then
Right.
then I don't have a friend.
Right. This work's too valuable for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going on a bit much, but listen to this. the strength of healthy shame. Not only can I claim that I'm needy, but I can also claim that I'm gifted. In other words, it's a world of laughter and a world of tears, a world of hope and a world of fears. There's so much that we share, so let's do it. And people will laugh when I say, something like I say something. I say, well, that's brilliant. And they laugh like, wow, don't think too highly of yourself, do you? And I say, no, actually, no, I don't. But I do think rightly about myself. And brilliant just means that I'm able to shed light on something because I've walked through so much. I've done so much. I've experienced so much. And I've received God's gift to be able to like see these things, like most of which I wasn't just taught. I actually sit around and put these things together.
Right.
But I mean, you show me your car engine, I'm going like, where's a mechanic? So it's not claiming some kind of grandiose thing, but it's claiming like, I've got this thing that could help you if you want it. And I'd love to share it with you because people have helped me with it. I mean,
yeah.
So healthy shame sets us free. So dependency, if we'll do it truthfully, strengthens us. We become in the world, but not of it. We become independent.
Independent of the world.
Yes, your rules don't apply to me. Your should-isms don't apply to me. If I want to go and see if this thing can happen, even if I get embarrassed, I'm going to go find out.
Yeah.
Orville and Wilbur Wright, like they got out of line. They decided, I think we can figure out how to fly, right? So if we're good at dependency, I become independent from the commands and demands of other people to act a certain way. No, I want to act how I'm made to act, how I'm created. And then also, if you will own the truth of who you are, like this is the truth. I feel, I need, I wish, I hunger, I imagine. Well, that's not realistic. Well, I know it's not realistic, and I know that the vision is bigger than can happen. But the truth is, I'm going to go anyway. So the truth is a struggle with reality, but the truth is bigger than reality.
Yeah.
That the heart is actually bigger than the limits that reality sets on us
right.
because we can dream.
That's right.
And then lastly, if you fully become present again, wherever you go, you do perform. Because like even right now, while we're doing this webinar, you and I are performing, but this is me doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in my body, I'm in my face, I'm coming out of my face. This is real.
Right.
So of course I perform, of course you perform, but when your heart is in what you're doing,
yeah,
you're free.
Uh-huh.
You're free to be fully present. In other words, you live in the present, and that becomes a gift called a present. Okay.
And anxiety just
Anxiety goes down, but
hypervigilance.
embarrassment goes up.
Right.
Right.
So okay, so tell me again the link between healthy shame, my limitedness, being broken by life, and giftedness.
Yeah.
Make the connection.
I'm 28 years old, and I come to a point, let's just say in my life where I kind of like, let's just say metaphorically, I looked in the mirror and went, I'm not okay. I don't like this. I hit bottom. And bottom doesn't have to be external. It can be internal. Like I'm sick and tired of something.
Right.
I need help. Okay. And the first guy that I asked for help, his name was John. I said, will you help me? Like something's wrong. I didn't know what it was. And I had a tear came down my face. I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me. And he said, I'll help you. And so I didn't go back for 6 weeks. Okay. Which made sense to me because I knew that he just said that because he felt sorry for me. He thought this guy may be psychotic.
No one can meet my needs.
No one can meet my needs. I've really blown it. I'm pathetic now, and I don't need anybody's pity. So I came to a point at which I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take not hoping anymore. I couldn't take not feeling. And so I came to a point in which, like, I can't do this. I need help. And so that needing help, it comes from failing at all these things that we thought were going to happen and they don't. And that's our limp.
Mhm.
It's like, gosh, look what me trying to fix my toxic shame. Look what me doing everything I could not to feel. Look at what happened to others around me by me not needing. Look at what it's done to me. It's like it broke me, but it also harmed me and others.
Right.
And that's the limp. And so the cost is that our egos get shattered where we use our faces to hide our hearts. Our egos get shattered, but the true self can come back. Like we can be born again by returning to how we're made, and which means I'm a feeling, needing, desiring, longing, hoping creature. Now, through that limitation and that brokenness, I came back to hope with the help of others. And then that which had been sitting inside me since I was a young boy with all these thoughts, this intuition where I see people doing things because I grew up in an addicted family. Like, aren't we missing something here? And I would say something and get in trouble. And all of a sudden, what happened was that how God had made me wasn't defective. How God made me was just right. And it turns out when I was introduced to feelings, I'd been waiting on knowing what feelings were my whole life.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
then when I was introduced to them, it was like somebody threw a duck in water. And I'm like, I get this. And then before I know it, I'm 33 years old, and
Yeah.
we'll be playing the podcast from that retreat. But it's like this stuff came to life in me, and I wanted to start giving this life to others.
Right.
And so for the next 35 years, that's all I've done. And here I am because of healthy shame, still burning brightly with this idea of, hey, guess what? It's a world of laughter and a world of tears, a world of hope and a world of fears. Hey, there really is so much that we could share that maybe it's time we're aware it's a small world after all. And we all need a hello and goodbye. We all need somebody to say, where are you? And what are you doing with it?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? And what's that like?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's strength giving, encouraging. And the only reason I know that stanza to that song is because of Sonia, because she showed me things that I would not see otherwise.
Mm.
She's introduced me more to
Yeah.
like listening to that powerlessness as we're on that ride.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm being brainwashed. It's a small world after all. It gets in your head. She said, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" No, I don't hear anything, but I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm crutched in this boat. And that was the first time. And she gave me the stanza, and I'm like, I I was like, I think I just heard from God.
Mm.
And I've ridden the ride probably 25 times just so I go hear that and see these little kids just saying goodbye to each other as they're all related
Yeah.
from every culture in the world, but they're all made the same. And they've all accepted it, and they can say hello and goodbye to each other.
Yeah.
Because we all have needs, we all have feelings. The more that we share, the better off we can be.
That's right.
In relationship with ourselves, others, and God.
Right.
And healthy shame opens the door to that.
That's right.
And healthy shame accepts all the other feelings and accepts us being needy. Toxic shame rejects us as God made. And last thing, I want us to know that once you're bitten by toxic shame, you not only reject yourself, but you reject how you're made. You're also rejecting the God who made you.
That's right.
And the great sadness is to heal from shame requires that we embrace it, because toxic shame is a false covering that is overlaid upon the true self. So we have to embrace what we think will kill us to find underneath it the healthy shame by saying, what do I feel? What are you feeling? Like, if I tell you what I'm feeling, I will die. And somebody outside me says, I can receive you feeling, then I'm going, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But if I take the risk and don't die and I'm received, a little piece of toxic shame falls off. And before I know it, over time, there's a path back to life.
A beautiful surrender.
a beautiful returning
Yeah.
to God, what God made that I
Mhm.
had to hide. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We are talking in our men's group last night, I think, about just how difficult it is just to say, "Do you know how much I need you? Like,
Yes.
I need you to answer the phone when I call.
Yeah.
I need to hear from you."
Hmm.
It is, we just skip around that. Just
Hmm.
a simple declaration.
I need you to tell me the truth,
That's right.
even if it hurts, as long as I know you care about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We have time for a few questions.
Good.
Good, good. We got a few coming in. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We say a little more about how do you climb out of toxic shame?
Yeah. Okay. So you don't climb out of toxic shame, which is really scary. You
Mhm.
don't overcome toxic shame. You go into toxic shame. Let me say it this way. I would do this in treatment all the time. That you're born with inherent worth. You come into life with inherent worth. You come into life expressing it, this gold ball of worth. It can't get smaller and it can't get bigger. And so you come into life and you poop and you pee and you cry and you make dove noises and you assume that there are people around that really want to change your diaper.
Uh-huh.
And if you wake up at 2 a.m., it's playtime for me. Hey, got a baby monitor here. Somebody needs to get up and come play. This idea that I am worth the trouble. And then when we discover toxic shame by the faces we look into and the actions they take, they don't meet us in the struggle. They can say no to us and we can cry about it, but we can be told that the crying's okay and still I got to go to sleep.
Right.
Okay.
I'm limited.
I'm limited.
Parents limit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when our selfhood as God created us starts getting rejected or neglected or ignored, it's like somebody poured old oil from oil change on my head. And then another incident occurs and they drop iron filings. And then they throw old feathers. And then they grass clippings. And then old paint gets poured on me. And then I wind up looking in a mirror, the mirror of the people's faces I look into, and they don't seem to like what they're seeing, or they only like what they're seeing if I'm acting a certain way, which is acting.
Right.
All of a sudden, I see the mirror and I go, I know why. I'm grotesque. I'm disgusting. I'm sickening. And then it's like, no one could love anyone like that. So then we put a costume over the top of what we call our ugliness. Now we're codependent, toxic shame, and the true self hidden behind all of that junk. So I would have guys actually walk up to a not a mirror, but like a glass frame. They could see an outline of themselves. And I would say, do you know what your eyes look like? What color your eyes are? And they would say, well, green or blue. I said, are you aware that your eyes, the irises, are beautiful, that they have sparkle in them? And I want you to say that to that glass. Your eyes are beautiful and they have sparkles in them. And the guys go, no. Or they would go, your eyes are beautiful,
Yeah,
there's
right.
sparkles
They
in them.
save themselves.
Like, let me show you and I'll say your words, but I
Yeah.
don't mean them. Like, you'll never break me. And then finally, it's like, look at your eyes. And I'm telling you, look at me. You know, I haven't lied to you because I've hurt you so much already. You know, I'm not going to lie to you because I don't care how you feel. I just want you to feel. I'm not here for you to be happy. I'm here for you to be fully alive. And then finally, a guy would say, your eyes are blue, or your eyes are gray, or your eyes are brown. And that man says they're beautiful. I think he's weird. But what if he's telling the truth?
Uh-huh.
What if he's telling the truth?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, if he's telling the truth, then I can see maybe. I said, so what I'm saying is you just touched your face and you just wiped over your eyes and you blink. I said, look. And so you start to embrace the shame, and you find out the shame is a covering that's covering up the child within. That turns out that you were born beautiful. I know it sounds weird, beauty in terms of worth.
Mm-hmm.
God didn't mess up by making you a feeling creature who needs and desires and longs. So
Right.
we have to embrace the shoulds, and we've got to have people outside of us who are reaching into us, and we need to answer them with the feelings we have on the floor. Feelings are the pathway to escaping toxic shame.
Right. And when he says on the floor, we're talking about in
Yeah,
our
the
offices,
feeling
we have
sheets.
feeling
Yeah,
sheets on the
yeah,
floor.
yeah. Because you
And
have to
we
look
can have
down.
them on the fridge. We
Yes,
can have them on the mirror.
yes.
You know.
Yeah, on my website, I've got a free download right now from the children's book about how are you feeling today. So that everybody tells me that the child version of the feelings list that
It's great.
is better than the
It's
grown-up
really,
version.
it's really good.
Please go to my website and download that.
ChipDodd.com.
But I want you to know that toxic shame is a healing. It's not an event that it's scraped off and suddenly you're like flying. You once you have toxic shame, it's like you practice keeping the pathway clear.
Uh,
But the toxic shame is always waiting on the edges
right.
to call you
A
names.
day at a time.
Yeah, you're stupid. You should have known that. You shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't think like that. Don't you see it's your fault? You know that it's self-hatred, self-blame. And it actually, I'll stop at that, but
Okay.
it's yeah.
One more question. Okay. As Christians, people who are religious church, what do just tell us something about toxic shame and Jesus.
Jesus said, just one thing,
One
just
thing.
one thing. Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who have a limp. Come to me, all of you who have decided that if you bring what's really going on inside of you to me, I'll reject you.
Hmm.
Come to me, all of you who have looked around everywhere you could in your life and you've never found a place where you could rest. Come to me, all of you who are burdened with shoulds, burdened with rules and regulations and having to keep up with everybody. If people aren't pleased with you, then you're no good. If you haven't achieved a certain mark, then you're worth less. If you don't caretake people, then you don't care. If you don't fix people, then you're no friend. If you don't get a people's approval, then you are a disappointment, which means you don't have an appointment. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all of you who struggle and don't know where to go or what to do, and I'm going to give you drink, rest." It's like, I'm going to give you lemonade. Okay. But it's funny because the rest he's saying is, I'm going to give you a place. Then he says, take my yoke upon you, which means bond with me relationally, like line up with me, like go where I go, because I think your eyes are beautiful. And I didn't forget who I made. I saw you before you got here. I knitted you together in your mother's womb. Now you come on back. So take my yoke upon you, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, or I am meek and grasp who you are. I'm humble. In other words, I'm in the same struggle you're in.
Mhm.
I'm living a human life like you are.
Humility, a gift of
Humility, humility without humiliation.
yeah.
He had no toxic shame. He was totally willing to show what was happening inside of him, from Gethsemane to the temple overturning the tables to Peter, put your sword up. I got to go through this. Okay. But he said, come unto me, all you take your yoke upon me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and I will give rest for your very soul. So a lemonade turns into a lemonade stand.
Yeah.
But it happens through relationship. And that relationship starts with admission of need. I can't do this. I need help, which turns into turning that which is prideful back to the one who made me and getting help with becoming like I can believe in power greater than myself again. And then I start living every day from the standpoint. First thing I need to do is admit that I'm human and there's a God who meets me in it, no matter where I am or what's going on with me. Who
My
can tolerate,
power is restored.
yes, who I can celebrate with and grieve with.
Yeah.
And then officially, you're living in the Psalms. And the Psalms are the stories of our struggle with God, the laughter with God, the tears with God, the hope with God, the fears with God. In other words, when we come to the Psalms, we find out it's a small world unless you're loaded with toxic shame and you as a Christian believe that you should not feel, that you should not need.
Should not feel and should serve.
Right.
Right.
And when he says that die to self, he's talking about dying to the lust of the flesh so that the true self can crave properly. God was very clear about unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, he's not talking about what's inside the seed dying. He's talking about the shell. And our shell is our toxic shame ego. Right. The ways we hide out instead of cry out. Remember that the roots of the oak tree are in the acorn. No breaking of the shell, no oak tree. Big deal.
Big deal.
Yeah. So I hope
Thank
so.
you.
Thank you. I really.
I needed this tonight.
Good. I want us to do this. I want us to do this.
Me too.
Yeah, I believe that you are called to it. I mean, someday I want us to do a webinar on how we came together.
That'd be good.
At length, because it's such what kind of story would you call it?
It's God moving.
It's
real.
There's no way it could have been an accident. Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.